And here we are for another episode of Dualistic Unity Raw call-in edition. We haven't done this in, what is it, like 2 weeks? Yeah, I guess so, because we do it every 2 weeks, but I know there are retreats in there somewhere. I love these shows, and mostly just because sometimes we see people that we know, other times we see people that we've never known. And I really enjoy that. Sometimes they come over from Instagram, or they come over from other places, or sometimes they show up with a point that they want to make. And I just want to encourage that. If you're out there and you want to talk to us, you have a question, a story to share, maybe you have a beef with something that we've said, or maybe there's something that we said that you'd like some clarity on, jump in. You can do that. Dualisticunity.com/live. Go there, fill in your information, check the little box that says, yes, I understand this is a podcast and people will listen to that shit. And then you can join us, and we'll be here on the screen for up to 10 minutes. And you can just share your thoughts, because that's what this is all about. It's about getting in there. And I do want to say, get in there early, because usually what happens is that Andrew and I go on a long rant for about 45 minutes to an hour, and then somebody jumps in. And then another person jumps in, and then everybody wants to jump in towards the end. So don't waste any time. If not now, when? There is only the present. Get in there now.
Get in there now. Exactly. But yeah, these are always a blast. It is pretty much exactly how it works out. What Ray said, about an hour in, and people start coming in, and people start realizing, oh, that's kind of fun. There's no pressure to talk about anything specific, but thinking about this, been thinking about that, got this question, got that question. And then, someone sees someone do it, like, oh, that's not so bad. And then they jump in, and it's kind of like, one of that, like the video, the guy, how to start a following, or how to start a movement. And one guy's in there for a while, and then all of a sudden the second guy, and then the wave continues. So anyway, that's my analogy for how the call-in show works. And now that we've gotten the dissection of how the call-in show usually plays out of the way, we can get into some other stuff. But yeah, we're one of the things we finished off, and again, we're just gonna talk like we normally talk until someone tunes in. So definitely hop in there. But the last thing we were talking about on Instagram/DU social before was just how much we use the idea that there's somewhere to get as an avoidance tactic of ourself. Like, we're always running from what we are without, and it's almost like we conceptually separate ourselves from it and don't want to look at it. Like, we don't even take a moment to just sit in being what you are, like the willingness to just let go of your intent towards anything or anyone, to be anything for you, or to respond to you in any specific way. Like, the willingness to let go of that desire for someone to respond in any way allows you to be free. And then you can just be free and act as you act. Like, act as it becomes almost childlike, in a sense of just being willing to say what you're feeling, and act how you're acting, without the bars and the barriers that we've felt for so long. But anyway, I see that we have someone in the waiting room, so I'll stop rambling.
No, I'm sure this is going to lead into the next question, or the next topic. I have no doubt whatsoever. We are joined by Justin, who I think I know which Justin this is. And if so, then I'm happy to say that he's the first guest of the show. And this is going to be a fun conversation about, quote unquote, human development. Not sure we're going to go with that, or what he means by human. Guest of the show, and this is going to be a fun conversation about, quote unquote, human development.
Justin,
hello. Sorry. Oh my God, I'm sweaty as well.
you're good, dude. What is up?
I had to rearrange my room, so my base camp can usually see my room, and I'm pretty proud of it. It looks real nice to me. But yeah,
That's awesome.
I wanted to talk about human development. I know when I usually get these calls, I usually have these like really big conversations about how to really just be in in whatever it is. So I want to take a little like kind of detour and just kind of mix it up a little bit. I found it really interesting. I'm really into before this. I used to really be into geopolitics and like history and type stuff, and I've been recently getting into that. Recently getting into more hobbies and stuff, and I found it really interesting seeing the whole geopolitical and history at a different perspective than I used to, and you can really see, and I could really see the different perspectives I really had, and some things make more sense than others the more I look at it. And one thing I found very interesting is that if you look from the beginning of like human development and human societies usually start off like separate. You could kind of see the level of like, I know I've talked about this before, but like the level of separation like people really have from one another in like a society by looking how they're organized. And one thing I found very interesting is that when societies, when as human development goes on, societies come together. They kind of unify. It comes like a transition from being like tribal to like kind of a city state, and move on. And you could see people actually unifying and actually kind of actually letting go of their idea of separation, like not completely, but like you could see the level of cooperation that society has of how it's like laid out. And almost like one thing I found very interesting is human development goes on, more and more states start to unify. And as one really good example in Europe uh, was, all you could see, a lot of these major countries were always like smaller states: Japan, Germany, Italy, France. They were all in the past. They were small, like small city states. They were small little states that they often had wars against each other. There was the Holy Roman Empire, but I wouldn't really say that's like a kind of like a unified like state. But it was also all kinds of city states. And as you see more and more as like people progress and more conflicts happen, uh, people do start to kind of come together and form more like larger, more complex states. And I found it so interesting because you could see it go like back and forth. One good example is Yugoslavia, back in Europe, from back during 20th century Yugoslavia. One thing I found very interesting about Yugoslavia is that for some reason this country had a whole bunch of races in it, and they were fine living together until one point where they broke together, and now it's all disorganized states. Uh, Out of the stupidest thing, racial tension, even though they've been living together for ever since. Well, it's been for a long time. There was a whole bunch of stuff going on, but all of a sudden have this barrier of like separation, and they start fighting each other. They started fighting each other. The Yugoslav wars were very brutal, and you can really see how much how much the idea of like citizens in their like in that society really holds on to the idea of themselves. And the more they let go, the more like societies get into more conflicts. I feel like they're confronted with that separation, and they're forced to like let go of it in a sense. And as time and more conflicts and more things happen, societies tend to unify more. That's kind of the trend I've like really seen. I'm not trying to say it's a prediction, maybe, but it wouldn't be too far off to say that as time goes on, societies will unify more and more. And I won't even put it off to the point where our whole idea of national identity is pretty much is out the window. Our idea of like what my nationality is and out the window, and we'll be fine to actually be in a full unified state with like with anyone else. That's the thing, is that a lot of people back in the past especially took their national identity as something as they are. And that really escalated points of conflict, racial, and all these different things come from just actually identifying with something that's completely imaginary. Nations aren't real. They're a concept. They're they're not actually something in objective reality. And people take that idea way too fast and will have the idea of, oh, I'm American, I'm German, I'm this, I'm that, and anything that's except of that, that's anything beyond that, is a threat to you. You can see that a lot. You can see that a lot of World War II, a very major example. One thing I found very interesting is that, like, it depends, like, of who won. It depends with, like, people that were really associated with the German identity. It was an overcommitment to this German identity. Went over to the east. Operation, not specific, not only, like, Operation Barbarossa was the invasion of the Soviet Union, and I honestly, I think that's the most brutal, one of the most brutal invasions of human history. It was the largest invasion in human history. They pushed in Ukraine, and literally one-third of all Ukrainians died because they had the national identity of them being German, and them being Slavs was kind of iffy because it challenged their idea of themselves, and they killed them all. Hey, who would have guessed? But yeah, it really comes to much of, like, the other idea of, like, separation, how separate you are uh, from the person next to, even the person that's all the way across the world. And is really that overcommitment to separation is really stopping us from actually unifying, because whenever these societies unify, you could really see them being at their full capacity. In Central before Germany unified, it was all small city states. They weren't really powerful. They were really, like connect weren't like a major industrial power. But once they unified, they started getting better. Once they unified in the East, it's it really is it says a lot that how much how much, like, my perspectives changed when I actually go back and look at history and geopolitics, and how we somehow stop cooperation just because a sense of self, of an imaginary, of all this imaginary stuff and all this other stuff. So I just want to see your thoughts on that.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's funny because it's oddly enough, we have revolutions thinking like we're going to correct the whole thing, and then we end up doing it again because it's always a product of the way we think, right? But it's interesting because the response to uncertainty ultimately ends up to being empire building, which comes to, bringing other countries together and conglomeration over time, and then you can form a new identity. Now everybody identifies as that, and then that gets taken over, or that becomes something part. And so our natural reaction is always to build another identity, come together under a bigger tent. Is what religion is ultimately trying to do: find the one world religion. This is what the United Nations are trying to do. This is the idea of a universal government, a one world government. This is the ego's reaction to everything, is to have one banner for all of us to rally under. But that creates one power structure, which leads to more egotism, which eventually leads to a revolution. This is the basis of 1984, where you find out that the revolution, the people who are the revolutionaries are actually created by the government just to make you think that there is somebody fighting the government. Right. And it's just, it's that whole thing. So very much like we were saying about the only true religion is none. The only true one banner we can stand under is none. Because otherwise we end up almost in the same position that we are in with corn, right? Where it's like, we need to have the best corn that's, it's going to grow the best, create the best crops. It's going to fight insects and all that stuff. And now we have almost no varieties of corn. It's all the same goddamn corn. And we suffer for it. Our agriculture suffers for it. Our bodies suffer for it. Our environment suffers for it. And it's all because we're just trying to find that one thing that's the best thing, right? And so it's the loss of all of that. It's the loss of all of the control. This is why I like the idea of small micro communities. It's the one way that we haven't gone, which is having faith in other people to not need us to show them the way.
It really does, yeah, because, like, it's all of how committed you are to, like, to this one big overall, like, truth. It's us. It's like all our nations, like, this culture, just big old, this is our moral way, our way of thinking, our ideology is the one way that's to go. and they're overcommitted to that, and they're overcommitted to they mistake that as they put their ideology, their whatever how they run things as themselves. They mistake it as, they think it's them. They think that it's a part of them, and they're overcommitted to that. And yeah, it's obviously it's empire building. It have empires because I'm the one that has the correct answer, so I must take over everyone else, take over everyone else because I want to spread them to. Hitler thought he was saving the world. He thought he was saving the world.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah.
it caused the literally the largest losses of human life in human existence because
And-
he thought he was saving the world because he thought that this one belief system, the way we like everything's one is the truth, and it just fucks over. It just fucks over a lot.
The attachment to thought as truth, that's certain. It's like we're always fluctuating in between certainty and control and the willingness to let go and have faith in ourselves. And I say that even from, and I was thinking about it in the perspective of like, over history, over a timeline, that we're fluctuating in and out, but it's not that, because there isn't a timeline. There isn't anything else. There isn't anything but you here now fluctuating. And so the fluctuation isn't so much as a collective as it is just you fluctuating in and out of certainty and control versus the willingness to relax and let go, because there isn't even a timeline of a overarching fluctuation, because there isn't anything besides you here now. And so your willingness to do that is reflective of everything else happening and how attached we are even to the stories of history and how they were. Not saying that, they didn't happen exactly how they happened or questioning any like conspiracy theory stuff, but just our attachment to anything outside of just being willing to be uncertain here and now.
Yeah, it
is the fluctuation. And Justin, we are a little bit over time, and we do have a couple of people in the waiting room, but love chatting with you always, dude. Appreciate all of your insights.
All right, thanks. All right, see you. All right, bye.
See you,
Take
Justin.
care, man. God, I love talking to Justin. Every time I'm just like, holy fucking shit, you're out there causing ripples. That's great. I love it. And of course, Justin, we see him occasionally on our Patreon calls as well. If anybody hasn't joined us on Patreon, that is something that you could look forward to, because oh my God, does that guy have so many insights just roaring through. I love it. I recognize the fire. Our next person in the queue is Amanda, who everybody knows because Amanda is our administrative coordinator and the brains behind Dualistic Unity. So I'll just let her into the room and we can get this show on the road. Amanda actually doesn't have any particular subject in mind. I believe what she wrote was, let's find out together, to the question of what are we going to talk about? So let's find out together. I believe what she wrote was, let's find out together.
Starting off with Ray. What's up, Amanda? How you doing?
Hey guys, I'm just watching you guys, but I also have it on my phone and my other laptop. We're trying to get those views up, trying to squeeze out every advertising dollar we can. I'm not one person, I'm really 4 people today. But Justin, loved everything that you were putting out there. I definitely think you might want to consider creating a podcast, because I love listening to your rants, and honestly 10 minutes is not enough for anyone, but especially maybe not you. Like, we need 10 times 10, at least 100 minutes at a time, but I loved what you were saying about society development. And it's so funny because I was thinking about my pet peeves and like the sins of religion, and how my pet peeves said more about me than they did about what was being disrupted in my little world. And when I thought about how my pet peeve said more about me, I thought about how the sins of religion said more about them and about that structure. And so like we think about, when I think about one of my pet peeves, it was like time management, or, somebody blowing me off would be like an issue, not realizing that I'm only mad at them because I gave them the time, or I set aside time for somebody that I knew didn't really want it, but I thought that we were supposed to exchange it. And so when they blew me off, it was like a fuck you to me, that how dare you blow off the time that I set aside for you when I didn't even really want to give it to you. And that's really what my pet peeve about time was, when somebody would blow me off. And when I think about religion and like their obsession with like gender roles, sexuality, violence and impulse control. It's because the people that were creating religion didn't want to accept those sides of themselves. And so instead of admitting that they also have those sexual impulses, they also have that violence, it was like, fuck that. That's not something we even want to embrace. That's sinful. That's from the devil. That's not me. That's totally separate. And when I was thinking, when Justin was going on about like society development and how it was always coming together, I thought, you know, all tribes started with at least two. And I think about myself as like a caveman back in the day. And it's like, I see another caveman, somehow we bond over something. And then all of a sudden an asshole comes through the jungle. And then we're like, fuck you, it's us versus them. And instantly there's a group, instantly there's a division. And it's just because we didn't have the mental capacity to understand that we don't need to create one giant team, one united team, because we've always been a part of one united team this whole time. Banner and membership not required.
Well said. Yeah, with the tribes, like it's exactly it. And we try and hold on to this attachment. And I guess it comes from, like, so much of it comes from certainty, and whether it's the pet peeves, like you were saying, or with just the idea of two tribes clashing and having this degree of certainty of ownership, I guess, is a lot of what the land disputes came down to, was a degree of ownership and certainty. And that's a big part of why, when, you know, Europeans came over to the US, it was like, I know Native Americans didn't understand like selling the land or owning the land, because they didn't see it as something separate from them. So it wasn't even a comprehensible thing. And yet there was degrees of certainty from the egotistical side of like, this would make my life better. This is better for this. This is something that I can own. This is something that I can do. And all of that, and all of the conflicts that we have with reality come down to a sense of certainty, come down to that false certainty, right? Like, even with a pet peeve, like that, I am certain that this should be different than it is. And it's not to say that, you know, pet peeves are bad or wrong or whatever. Hold on to them if you want, let them go if you want. But it stems from, if you take it very seriously, it stems from a certainty that doesn't exist. Like, it really doesn't. And it's like our attachment to any situation, any experience as something that is existing conceptually at all, is our degree of certainty about what's spreads from it. Like, our degree of certainty that we came from something or are going towards something at all makes us have conflict with what is. And it's just like, and there's points of, I don't know, not required false certainty, but beneficial. And it's like, where do you teeter, where it's, you know, false certainty to a degree enough that you can communicate, versus false certainty to the degree that, you know, you feel like you have control of what's going to happen, or how someone perceives you.
Yeah. And I think I like when you brought up like that sense of ownership, and also it's also tied with entitlement. And it's almost like they're a pair of wolves that hunt together, you know, ownership and entitlements. And so if you see one, you usually see the other. And so they're always in a pack, and I almost want to rebrand pet peeves into like pet resistance, like little creatures of resistance that I keep as little pets. And so instead of like, you know, they're this line you've crossed, it's like, no, that's that line that I turned into a pet that I can't let go of. That's that line of resistance I haven't been able to walk across, but I've named it Billy, and it goes with me everywhere. You know, like, it's just insane that, and that's why I love saying like, your creation says more about the creator. Your book says more about the author than it does the topic. Because anytime you read a book, you're getting to know the author in a way that they don't normally share. And so the same thing with my pet peeves, or my little resistant creatures that I collect and carry with me everywhere. They say more about me and where I've stopped than they do about how you treat me, or how you don't respect me, or any of those things. Because the minute that I point the finger to you to say you've done something wrong, I'm just letting you know where I'm triggered.
Exactly. And that's all we're ever showing, right? Is that spot, like, even when, and it's interesting when And I don't like, it's been fun, like not trying to be as intentional towards people, like having degrees of certainty when I interact with them about how they should be or should act. But even when, I hear someone judging someone else, it's so clearly just things they judge themselves about. And I don't want to be that fucking guy who's like, you do realize judgment's always a reflection of how you see yourself, right? And that's not gonna relax anyone, but it's interesting because, and then you catch it in yourself, like, and you're quick when you're quick with yourself, you're going to be quick with other people, but there's a balance of that certainty, like me holding on to a certainty that someone acting in a different way would be better for them, as opposed to expressing something without so much intention, not with a desire for them to change, but just sharing a potential way of seeing something that could be an opportunity for them to hold on to or recognize, and then potentially shift from that. But it comes from a very different spot. But it's funny when you start to see people's judgments for what they are, and you're like, oh, you're telling me a lot right now. Like, you're really sharing quite a bit, and you think you're being all coy with it. Like, holy shit.
Well,
No.
this is why it's important to say things to some degree. Like and it's so interesting how your view of this changes, because to some degree you're like, well, I don't have to say anything. In fact, what am I saying anything for? I don't need to change you. But that's not a one-on-one situation. I find more often than not in a public setting. I think the considerations change because it's more of you that's being exposed to whatever the interaction is, and so there's more sway, right? And I don't think we take that seriously. It's what politics are based on, but I don't think we take that seriously to a very large degree. So a good example would be a review that somebody was nice enough to leave on our Apple reviews, and it was a review where basically they just went off about Andrew. It was all about Andrew, thinking that he was some, philosophical genius, but he's really just a fucking pothead. And, everybody follows him because he's attractive, and, they should really reconsider. And all I got out of it was that he thought you were attractive and felt disappointed that you didn't talk about the things he wanted you to talk about. And that was it. But he was so angry, and he went out of his way to leave this, like, really, and everybody can check this out. It's on Apple reviews. And while you're there, please leave a review, just because you're there anyway, and it's a good laugh. But it's important to look at that and recognize where it's coming from. And in doing so, you go, oh, fuck, that sucks. Like, that really sucks. But on the other hand, this person went out of their way to leave this thing publicly. Like, they're basically taking a snapshot of their insecurity and just hanging it up in the middle of a park for everybody to go and see. So the problem with that is that while some people will recognize that insecurity for what it is, other people will look at that as justification to reinforce their own insecurity. They actually won't question it at all. They'll go, yeah, I'm angry too. Yeah. And that's what becomes a fucking mob. Right. And so in those moments, because it's so public, you have to take the moment to just like draw a fucking mustache on that thing. Like you need to be able to look at it and go, you need to see what this shit is. Right. And make a point of it, not out of judgment, but certainly out of a point that this should make an impact. Somebody should look at this for exactly how ridiculous it is. But if you take it seriously, it comes across as serious, right? If you're like, oh, you can't talk to me like that, how disrespectful, that's not very conscious. It's like all of that shit, there's no point to it. There's no point to it, but you can laugh at that shit. You go, man, I am so sorry that you felt so disappointed by whatever it was that you were looking for here. But it's nice that you found Andrew attractive.
I know we got to go old. We got to go middle school with this. When somebody gives an insult, I'll be like, it takes one to know one. Or somebody insults something about like Andrew not talking about the things, and it's like, how desperately do you want him to talk about your favorite topics? Have you thought about that? Somebody judges someone for not being an eloquent speaker. It's like, how insecure do you feel about when you speak? I'm almost going to be taking that approach with people, is that when I hear an insecurity or a judgment coming from them, it's like, how often do you deal with that? Do you worry about that all the time? Because it sounds like it's on the forefront of your mind. Because I heard them and I didn't have any thought that you had, but I also don't worry about that. So I wonder, are you getting enough support at home?
Exactly. Start calling it how it is. Like you're acting like a very insecure little bitch right now. And that's exactly what you're saying. Exactly what it is. It's like it's so clear. It's clear as day that this is something you struggle with or deal with in yourself because you're talking about it. You're bringing it up. It's like that's not coming from anywhere but you and your mouth and your mind and your brain and your but the way you're perceiving yourself, and it's just like we're vomiting out how we see ourselves at all times, thinking that it's judging, thinking that it's this, and it's just the deep insecurities we hold on to being expressed through things like judgment. And it's oh man, it's so funny how willing people are to express it. It's like the collective mind expressing its own fear of what it's going through, thinking that it's being cryptic, and it's not at all.
No, we think we're cryptic and we're so obvious because you can never hide your priorities. If anyone has eyes to see, it's as clear as day, and there's no denying it because you put it on center stage, and we can't avoid it when you put such a fucking bright spotlight on it.
I just want to say before we wrap up for our brief segment with you today, thank you for being here, but also thank you for everything that you've been doing for Dualistic Unity. Everybody doesn't know this. Most people don't know this because it's all behind the scenes, but Amanda has been basically the center point for our sales team as we have been building that sales team over the last week or so. We've had a number of interviews. We have a few people who are on the team. We're very excited about that. But Amanda has very much just taken the reins. She has created an onboarding package, and as much as I've tried to help here and there, and so has Andrew, the bulk of the work has been done by Amanda. And so we just want to say thank you, Amanda, for everything that you've done. And if anybody out there is as inspired by Amanda as many are in this community, and you want to work with us and for her, as it were, well, not for her, but with her, do definitely check out our LinkedIn page for Dualistic Unity. The job is posted there. We'd love to hear from you. It's a commission only position, but with all the energy and enthusiasm and fire that we all generate together, I mean, fuck, this is going to be intense.
Absolutely. We love you, Amanda. Appreciate you so much. Like seriously, it is felt, and can't wait until, to see where the shifts take us, and, we'll be able to work more closely for sure. So anyway, it's always great having you on here. I appreciate all the insights you brought up, and I'm sure we'll be talking very soon.
Yeah, I'll see you guys in a couple days for the Vancouver retreat. And I'm glad that I don't have to say that I love you both and that I love the DU community and that I do it because I want to. And so we are a team, and I'm so glad that I get to live something that's better than any dream I could have imagined. So thank you so much, guys.
Thank you.
Oh yeah. And of course there's a Patreon call after this, so we will likely see you there as well. That's at 8 p.m. Eastern tonight. It's Tuesday night, so if you can join us there, anyone who is watching this, Amanda will be there shooting the shit with us there as well. Take care, Amanda. All right, we have another person in the queue, and we're going to get to this. They've been very patient as we've been going, because they've been in there for a little while, and I'm continuing to drag this out. I just wanted to say very quickly, if you would like to join the queue after this person, please do so. dualisticunity.com/live. Then you just fill in the form, click on the little thing, and you can join the queue, and you'll be joining us after Viviana. And Viviana wants to discuss discomfort in growth, which is probably one of my favorite topics, because, it's uncomfortable, and so it's got to be some purpose to it.
Can you hear me?
We
Hey,
can.
hey.
Welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Hi.
Hey, Viviana.
How are y'all doing?
Doing well. How are you?
Good. Just out for a walk. Yeah, I was like your first in life person whenever you first guys started this, and this was like back in January, and a lot has happened since then, and a lot of growth, literally right after, like a couple of days after the call that we had, I got into a car accident, and like I was in a spot where I didn't like where I was at, and I wanted to move or either travel, and I was just being indecisive. I was just in the indecisiveness, and you know, um, so like yeah, and I just decided to move away, and now I'm here, like where I wanted to be, but there has been a lot of discomfort, especially with growth, and and I've been, I guess you could say, like healing. I've been on this path of healing, and you know, um, I don't know where I'm going with this, but there have been times, like there are times where like I feel like I would go insane. Um, and yeah, I've done ayahuasca and everything, and I do shrooms as well. So, you know, like I guess you could say like I've been like in the depths of of my trauma, and patterns and cycles, and it's just been a lot. It's been a lot since our last call. So yeah, like
Sounds
I
like
don't
it.
know. Yeah. But honestly, I'm in a good, like mentally I'm good. It's just that a lot of things has happened in my life. Yeah. And honestly, I'm glad that I found you guys. Like it's been years that I have been like I think it's been like a year and a half that I've been listening to you guys, and I think you guys were the reason why like I started my awakening. And honestly, I'm grateful for where I'm at, you know, um, and also grateful that you guys have done this for everyone, to like where we can like listen to this podcast and speak freely, and yeah, just grateful where I'm at, even though like all the shit that I've been through, like it really doesn't matter. But the growth is what gets to me sometimes, just like being that discomfort. And yeah, that's I'm honestly what all I have to say. It's just grateful for everything.
Well, I'm grateful for the timing because while we certainly had nothing to do with your awakening or your
Yeah.
change whatsoever, we did have some part as your environment, which is great. I love that. I love that you were able to use that. It's nice to have you back. I am sorry to hear about your car accident, but I'm glad that you're out and about and walking, and you seem okay. But you moved, and life has changed. But I just wanted to mention the discomfort thing. It's
Mhm.
like it's a skill, like everything else. Like you get better at change. You get
Yeah.
better at change the more you do it. And it's just that you start to realize how little of it is personal and how much of it is an opportunity. And that all kind of changes the tone of it as you go. But another thing to recognize is it's happening at the speed that it has to. Like it's happening at the speed that you are ready for, right?
Yeah.
And so that's great. Have faith in that. Just relax into it. Don't judge your progress. Don't think it should be going faster. Don't think it should be going slower, because that's when you're like, I can't handle it. And
Yeah.
you can quite obviously, because you are. So I think the biggest thing, and Andrew's been talking about this the last few days, is just to not mind the discomfort. When it happens, just go, right, I've got this. It'll be I'll get through. Well, yeah, it's uncomfortable, meh, and just try to give it that kind of meh attitude, as it were, because you've been through discomfort a number of times, and it is also a skill. It is the same skill, in fact, right? Is just embracing change. I'm really happy for you. It sounds like a lot has shifted, and the growth in ourselves is often reflected in the changes in our lives. And so I think that's fantastic. It's nice to have you back.
Yeah. It's honestly nice to be back on this call, because I've been trying to get on, the in live calls, it's like I can't because of the time difference, and I'm like, shoot. I'm always missing these calls because I enjoy it. Like I enjoy listening to you guys, and um, it's just like recognizing everything that I've been through. It's you know, like you said, it's a skill. Like um, it's just sometimes like I'm kind of hard on myself because of you know based on my past and like how I've grew up and everything, and just like the negative self beliefs, and deconstructing those negative self beliefs, and to be where I'm at now, it's just a lot of growth, and you know and just accepting everything as is, and um it's life. It really is life, and
Yeah,
honestly,
that's a good way to put it.
yeah.
Yeah. It's even understanding that those, like the experience that you're having now, is not disconnected at all from any of the experiences that you've had previously. Like they were all informing you here now, and you wouldn't understand what it was like to go through any of those things. You wouldn't have that depth to you without going through them. You wouldn't know what it's like to go through the negative perception of yourself, the all of the intrusive thoughts, the resistance to the experience that you're having, any discomfort that you feel ever, from jumping in cold water to deep discomfort of certain feelings inside of you. And so when you understand that there's nothing, it really comes down to, I guess, understanding that in infinite experience, like in order to experience all of it, there's an inevitability to certain experiences, and how resistant you are to it dictates a component, not all of it, but a component of that experience, and just the willingness to be where you're at without the certainty that anything else would be or should be happening other than what is, and being willing to be uncertain in that spot. It helps. It tends to help, but there is absolutely an inevitability to the discomfort, but you never know what it's telling you, what it's teaching you. But I feel you with the discomfort, because it's been something recent for me. A lot of that stuff. But
like sometimes, like I do, whenever I have moments, whenever I'm high, and like that growth, the discomfort of growth just like creeps in, and I'm just like, I don't like feeling this. And it just like makes me feel uncomfortable, and like I just like get like, I don't know, I just get a feeling in the inside, and it's like hard to avoid it, but it's just like sitting through it, sitting with the feeling, and accepting it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just letting go of the certainty of what it is or what should be different, and like the certainty that you shouldn't be feeling it. Like there's nothing wrong with any feeling that comes up ever.
Right.
And like the willingness to be there, to be that, without the certainty that it should be different, or that you shouldn't do any specific thing, always builds up that tension and stress that I shouldn't be doing this or shouldn't have done that. It's like when you let go of that, there's a little bit more of a state of relaxation, and then you see things a little bit differently, and you realize a lot of it is just the holding on to the opinion or the certainty about it that's creating a lot of the resistance with the experience.
Right. Yeah.
One thing that tends to help me, and because it's the feeling. See, it's funny, we can talk concepts and all that, but it's the feeling. All of a sudden you're like, I don't know if I like that.
Right.
Rather than respond to it, I breathe. I do a long exhale, and then I'll kind of look around, and then I'll do another long exhale if I have to. And the idea is just that I don't need to react to that. It's going to pass. It's going to fade in a few minutes. I just don't need to react to it. Even my urge to reach for it is going to fade if I just don't rise to it. And so I will typically just give a good long exhale, and that typically gives me enough time to kind of reset my reaction.
Yeah, that's what I tend to do sometimes. But like sometimes I let my thoughts get to me. Or
Yeah,
you
that's
know,
okay too, because that's
Yeah.
how you learn not to.
right, right.
That's the only way to learn not to. You can't do it because you should do it, right? The only reason you don't avoid the flame because you should avoid the flame. You avoid it because you recognize that you're going to get burned, right? And so
Right.
sometimes we need to burn ourselves to recognize what it means to be burned, and then we stop doing it automatically.
Yeah, exactly. Well, thank you guys. I
Thank
really
you.
appreciate, for letting. Yeah.
It's great to have you back. We really
Yeah.
appreciate you calling in. Do touch base with us as often as you can, because of course we love to have you here.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank
appreciate
you.
you
I'll be back.
sharing everything going on with
Yeah.
you. We'll talk to you soon.
Okay. All right. Bye.
That was awesome. Yeah,
I love it. And I remember her calling into our I think it
I
was
do
our
too.
very first call-in show.
She
Yeah,
didn't.
that
She
was
didn't think she was gonna show up on the screen, right?
That's
And she's like,
right.
"Oh my god, I'm here!" Like, I didn't know that happened that quick. Like,
That was
welcome.
great.
That
Wow, it's
was
hard to
cool.
believe that was way back in January.
Yeah. Holy shit.
Eh?
Yeah, 6 months.
We're actually coming up to, I think it's the year mark where we first talked, or something like that, or the 2-year mark since we first talked.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
crazy.
I was gonna say that. Yeah, that was. It's interesting. Like, I don't know. Maybe we can talk about this later. But with, like, I don't know, the day that I realized that I wasn't really what I thought was, like, every year there's some, I don't know, been some shit, and it's probably me digging into that too much. But yeah, I don't know. It's interesting.
Doesn't mean it's not fun to do, but we will have to do that later.
Exactly.
We have a couple of people in the queue. Ben, who has been here before. Ben is a part of the community and has been in several of these calls, as well as in our Patreon groups from time to time. It's always nice to have him as part of the conversation. He wants to discuss the collective ego, and immediately I'm suspicious of the word collective.
Hey, how's it going, guys?
What's up, Ben? How you doing, man?
So good, man. Good. I hope you guys are doing well as well. So yeah, the collective. I mean, yeah, maybe it's just one person. It's just one ego. I don't know. Words, man. They're not they're just descriptions, never the described. But yeah, I just wanted to share an experience I had over the weekend. I'm celebrating my friend's birthday. It's me and 5 other guys, and my friend's birthday, and his whose birthday it is, it's his girlfriend as well. And we decided to, well, actually it was her idea for everyone to get matching outfits. So we're all wearing the same shirt and bathing suit, and she even had like the matching top for her bathing suit. And her family has a boat, and so we're like driving the boat around New Jersey. There's a lot of beaches in New Jersey, and we're doing a boat bar crawl. So we're going to all these different bars within the Jersey Shore, and they have like parking lots for your boat, or slips, I guess, which is cool. And so we went to like 5, and the first 2 were fantastic. It was like a lot of fun, having a great time. A lot of people were giving us attention because we all dressed the same, so kind of felt like a celebrity at some points, which was always so much fun. And by the time we're at the 4th bar, it's the sunset. It's like golden hour, and we're all dancing. And we're kind of like the only people that are dancing as well. But it's a pretty packed bar, and me and my one friend. So the shirts for the guys are just button down shirts, and me and my one friend did not have any buttons buttoned up. So, free flowing chest and midsection. And that's because I like to wear shirts like that. And we're all dancing, and I go to use the bathroom to take a break. And so I go to the bathroom, and on my way back, this one person who works at the bar stops me, and he just kind of hits me, and I'm like, oh, hey. And then this person walked by me, so I thought that he was making room for the person to walk by, and I'm like, oh, sorry about that, to the person working there, and he goes, button up. And I'm like, oh, okay, why why do you want me to button up? And he's like, well, it's kind of a serious bar. And I'm like, he's like, but you're fine, you're okay, just button up. And I'm like, what? So this is a serious vibe, like we're here to be serious. And he said no. So immediate cognitive dissonance. He's just like, you're fine, you're okay, just button up. And I'm like, all right. I buttoned the bottommost button and walked away. And the second I got out of his view, I just unbuttoned it again and went back to dancing. So that was an interesting interaction. And just to go on a little bit later in the night when we're at the last bar, me and my one friend who had our shirts unbuttoned were the first ones there, and everyone else were coming probably about like 10 minutes later. And so before we walk into the bar, I have this thought that I'm like, our shirts are unbuttoned. I already gotten told to button up earlier today. It may happen again. And I kind of got a little anxious, but then I was like, but I'm just going to not button up and continue on. So I did that. Me and my friend walked into the bar. We were immediately getting like attention because we were wearing our matching outfits. And then probably within like 3 minutes, someone else who works at the bar told us to button up. So I'm like, all right. So is this is the vibe of the Jersey Shore? Can't have a little bit of fun, like with a free flowing shirt. And I will admit this, I don't know if he was a bouncer or worker, but he was pretty jacked. The first guy who told me was not at all. So I don't know if that may have had something to do with it as well, but I don't know. I've been practicing Wing Chun too, so I feel like they probably could have taken it. But so I'm just like getting told 2 different times, but it's by the collective ego, but then it's like just getting told that it's like, okay, this is where society is right now. I feel, like I just feel free when I'm wearing my shirt like that. And I feel like the people that were telling me to button up, I don't know if it was like maybe a policy of the bar or if it was just their personal feelings coming in. So that's a little bit, that's the experience.
That's fair. I'm going to say if it happened twice and they worked at the bar, then likely it's just they're just trying to make sure they don't get in shit from their boss. But that is in itself the point, right? It's like, I don't know if that's okay or not, but it might not be okay. So I should tell you not to do that.
Yeah, I even think of that sometimes. I mean, sometimes when I'm on especially mushrooms, but clothes, like even the idea of clothes, like how interesting it is that is a thing, not when it's cold out, obviously there's a function there, but when it's not, like how much of an aversion there is. But I've also thought about it in the sense that if everyone is around, walking around naked, then there could be a population issue, a lot more people having sex, a lot more babies being made. And so it's almost because it's, just one mind, just your mind, even the insecurity of whatever we had, like our body parts, caused us to want to wear clothes which actually came around to help the population issue, if that could have potentially been a thing. And so my point here is that we never really know what's going on or what's informing what. And even our opinion of a positive or a negative thing, a positive or a negative impact, a good or a bad thing, is kind of ridiculous. And it's all kind of our attachment to certainty, right? It's just our collective individual, not even collective, because there is no collective. It's just your attachment to certainty. And that's all that it ever comes down to. And your willingness to let go of my willingness to let go of my idea of what even is good or bad, and the certainty and the sense of control that comes with that. So it's like, it's not even a one side or the other at all. It's just the idea of certainty between the sides.
Well, and it's interesting because when we're talking about collective ego, we tend to leave ourselves out of that. Like in the case of somebody saying like, button up your shirt, and your response, well, fuck you. That's your ego too. And so immediately there's the two sides that are just like, but I don't want to, and I want to do my own thing. And that's the whole point. And so over time you start recognizing like, I could fight this. Maybe I could make the point. Maybe I could convince them otherwise. Chances are I can't. Is it worth it? Right. And then your options are to either button up your shirt because it's not worth it. Because again, this person's you. They're exercising the same egotistical preference that you have somewhere deep down. And so getting upset about it being enacted in society doesn't do shit. And so you can either accept it or leave. And that's where the free market economics comes from, right? Like if you don't want to go to their bar because they're too fucking uptight, that bar shuts down. Somebody less uptight opens up, right? And that's how the free market should work, is based on you being able to say like, I want to open my shirt. You don't want to let me open my shirt. I'm going to go next door where they will.
Right. Yeah. And I on the second time around, I just did. And because we were the first people there, I didn't want to, it wasn't worth it for me to ask any more questions. And maybe the fear of his physical frame. But yeah, going back to like just clothes, like kind of not a fan of clothes anymore, in general. But I know they serve a function, and society has, given them more than their function. The clothing is you could say it's appropriate in a lot of situations, different types of. We've gotten very far into the concept of clothes, and I know how to. I'm an adult. I know how to cater to the concept and to the situation, but yeah, it's the preference as well. My preference is creeping in for like saying like, well, no, I'm actually gonna take my shirt off. Like it's being sensitive to where they are at as well. So
So it's always just kind of a process. I want to say thank you for joining us, Ben. We really appreciate it when you jump on the show and you share your journey with us and all of the things that you're going through. It's always fun to have you here. We do have a few other people in the queue though, so we are going to move on. But if you can join us in the Patreon call after this, then we'd love to chat about this further.
sounds good. I can make that. So yeah, thank you for listening, and thank you for doing this show. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Ben. Thanks for calling in. Always great chatting.
No problem. See you guys.
See ya. Hey, that was fun.
That was fun. And next we are joined by Jeannie, who has also been here and does also participate in our Patreon calls from time to time. Jeannie would like to discuss being everything by seeing through self-imposed and reinforced limitations. I love this because you notice it's being everything by seeing through the reasons we think we're not, as opposed to trying to get there. I really appreciated that. Jeannie, it's nice to have you here.
Hello, can you hear me? All right.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, it's so good to see you guys, by the way.
See you
Obviously,
too.
you're doing well since you're here in this moment. It's awesome. But oh my gosh, I just wanted to touch on some things that were said. Of course, like oh my gosh, Viviana, for coming on. Like, of course, like, thank you so much for sharing your voice. Like, that's exactly what we love, you know, like we want to hear those updates. So those life updates are just as important as any other insight. Talking about voices, I lost mine and I was really fearful of jumping on this call because I was like, my voice is gonna be cracking, like I'm gonna sound so silly. I was like, okay, do you know what? We're gonna do it anyways because I rode some roller coasters. I lost my voice for the best reason ever. So gotta love those cheap thrills, you know. Also touching on what was said before too, like I just went through an hour-long harassment training at work. And as for dress, the only thing that was touched on was as long as you're not naked, anything kind goes, basically. You know, like don't be attacking protected groups or anything like that. Like make sure like what you're doing is coming from a truth. And that includes what we express ourselves with what we wear. Like don't be offensive. So yeah, I just wanted to touch on that too. So as for obviously just living, being everything, I was driving back home from work on the interstate in super heavy traffic, looking over the hazy quality air of the city, and getting cut off by semi trucks. Like I was so relaxed and I was smoking a couple of hits, you know me, and I was absolutely getting my mind blown, okay? This is because I was listening to Dualistic Unity Raw, episode 81. I definitely recommend anyone listen to that because at around like the 50-minute mark, you have to wait because you guys like to talk in circles, but this time y'all cut it, okay? Like this was like the metaphors alone just made me itch for another thought to tackle, another uncomfortability to see through and reflect on my own experiences that have got me to this fragment of life living as Jeannie. Of course, this is all in due time. I can't just force thoughts. So yeah, just waiting for those uncomfortable moments, of course. I think mind blowing is the best action to ever do because a circuit becomes unwired and needs somewhere else to link up with. So while it's floating around, it's just sending shockwave after shockwave all throughout your body, all throughout, you know, this network system. So that's what I was doing while I was driving, kind of just floating around. And this is what came to me. So I did write it down. I'm a little lame, so I'm going to read you guys something that I wrote. So here it is. Oh, also, you can answer any of the questions that I wrote down because, of course, most of my thoughts are questions. So please enjoy. In this moment, you're so much of everything. Do you know why? Because you're here. Everything that exists is expanding and contracting simultaneously. There is no one else who can make the choice in front of you because it's you. You're the only one experiencing what's around you right now. Take a look. See what exists before you. Listen. Be silent and still. Feel that the environment you're in is you. What does that environment need more of? It's you. What choice will you make to share more of the space you're in? So here's my question for you guys. I asked it on the social before this episode. So assuming a omniscient point of view, what will you do to beat yourself? Or more accurately, what is the impactful choice that DU will make to progress?
I was going to say nothing. Nothing of intent. Right? What am I trying to be that I'm not already? Right?
Choose to be here
Exactly.
with the camera
And a
as opposed to
microphone.
not.
Exactly. A shift in environment. But yeah, it's I've been feeling more of that for sure recently. The willingness to not have to speak without so much intention or desire to change anyone or
That's why I
anything.
got on board. That's why I got on board to begin with. This is why we're doing this. Because I ran. I walked away from it because of my intentions and the ripples. Right. I had to give myself that time. Finally, I'm just like, there's nowhere to go, no one to save. He seems pretty cool though. That was a fun conversation. Somebody might enjoy that. And driven by, if anything, just the fact that my daughter is an example of other versions of us that are out there with an environment that could use a little shifting. I mean, frankly, it's not trying to get it anywhere other than just maybe, a little bit more appreciation for where we are. And that is getting somewhere, oddly enough. It does cause a ripple just in itself, just by being where you are. And so, yeah, no, that's where I've been since episode 1. And it's nice to see how many people have come on board and are like, this is cool. This is a fun conversation. That's why I love these call-in shows.
Yeah, absolutely. I have adored these call-in shows ever since they've happened. And yeah, like, I don't know, of course, you guys always touch on great points, like nothing, of course, there's nothing to do except for just relax, like we just all got to take a moment and chill out, like there's literally nothing else to do. And that's something that I'm really grateful that you've been like setting that intention almost for me, especially since one of my goals since rejoining the green smoking train that's blasting around these parts, it has been like hugely opening to just be like, I need to relax before I smoke, like I can't just set the intention to relax. I have to relax and then ease into the everything that's literally unfolding right here. So it is so like, I just think that your guys' messages are so powerful. Of course, I've been listening since almost the beginning, and it has been like hugely transformative in my own life to like walk through this with you and know that like we're all here to support each other, and really know that we can reach out anytime, any question, it's all there.
We love having you as part of the community, Jeannie. You inspire us, and we love your progress. We love the fact that you came on to the show today, and you sound great. I just wanted to throw that in there very quickly, but it's so interesting because we forget that the individual and the collective are the same, and so we find ourselves with this message of just take a breath. Just instead of reacting, instead of getting caught up in the narrative that drives you towards some end point that causes you to speed up and miss everything that you're a part of. Just take a fucking breath. And in doing that, you'll see more, you'll live more, you'll learn more, and you'll experience more. And we say that individually, but if you look at what we're doing collectively at the march of government, the march of progress, technology, religion, all of this driving force towards something in the future, it's collectively that we haven't taken that breath. For generations, we have been on this fucking sprint to nowhere. And so individually, we're learning to take a breath, and collectively, we're learning to take a breath. It's almost like watching a wave in a stadium. It's just going to take a little while because we've been holding our breath for a long time and we're wondering why we're turning blue.
Yeah. And just to clarify the question before with what am I going to do to drive DU? And I said nothing. It's not that I'm doing nothing, but it's nothing to drive DU. But doing nothing with intention doesn't mean doing nothing. It's doing things without, in a direction of the enthusiasm of what I'm doing. And so in a response like that, I just wanted to make sure, and I knew you got it, Jeannie, but just for anyone listening, that doing nothing with intention doesn't mean doing nothing. And oftentimes doing nothing, the act, quote unquote, act of doing nothing is very much with an intention or an avoidance of all of the things we're always intending to do. And in that spot of relaxation without so much intention, you see things a little bit differently. You have a little bit more space to move. And then the actions stem from that, from the relaxation, but you don't know what they're going to be until you relax. It's like you got to be in that spot to see it. And then you just move and see where it goes, but there isn't so much need behind it. And so it's coming from a little bit of a different spot.
Yeah, I totally feel that. I mean, I'd like to just bring up another example, if that's okay. I know we're close on time, but it'll be quick. So when like I've been struggling like communicating with my coworkers. It's always a difficult challenge. So I've realized it's because of a lesson that I've learned that I haven't been able to like transmute in a way that is like opening to some of the people that I work with. So the thing that I learned was how to say please, which is so lame to have learned at the age of like 23, by the way. Not a good look. Okay, so I'm still in practice, as we all are. And so I've again been noticing that like a lot of the things that are asked for at work are demands and just like insensitive to time and space and anything else. So to then be able to like open up a conversation does involve a lot of intention. And it was something then that I haven't really been preparing for a long time, since I haven't worked with this coworker very much until this week. So again, I was like, I'm going to break down this wall right here. So it happened, right? He said please to me like in the middle of the day, and I just stopped and I was like, just breathe that in, you know, like really enjoy that moment of him saying please. And I actually stopped him right there and I was like, hey, I just want to let you know that like this is something that I've really been struggling with, and like make sure to relate to him. And I was like, I really just want to say I appreciate you for saying please, because it is something that like goes noticed, very much so. Like it is a word that is noticed. And I feel like then to be able to have that opening conversation, it made the whole rest of the day so much smoother. Like we even got a truck stuck today in a ditch. Okay. So like shit just happens all the time. And we just chilled out. We were like, we can't do anything. So might as well just make the most of it and actually spend some time like just sharing some things and just feeling like comfortable being uncomfortable.
That's
Exactly. Yeah. Why not find out, fuck around, find out all like might as well see where that path goes. Right. And yeah, it's like I've been down this path a number of times every single fucking day for years. Let's see what a different one does. Let's, you know, maybe relax a little bit more, maybe be willing to see that the certainty that you're holding on to might not be as true as you think. Question that shit.
That's it. It's the value of admitting your journey, of admitting part of your journey. I mean, this is the issue that I have with what we've done with people in the past who were quote unquote enlightened. We've made them enlightened, you know, instead of recognize they took a shit too. You know, like they did the same stuff that we do. You know, they picked the same nasty crap out of their toenails. They wondered whether to wear underwear or not. They wore it too long. Sometimes it got all ratty around the elastic if there was elastics at the time. Like there's just human shit that these people did. They weren't fucking like energetic angels just floating around with wings and shit. And we forget that. We put them on this pedestal and we forget that they're just like us, except with slightly less concern.
That's absolutely true. Oh my gosh. The visuals you provide are uncanny. Thank you. Thank you. Yes. It's exactly the like the uncomfortability that like I need in my life, you know? So it is hugely, hugely opening again to just hear you guys live and be able to participate as well. So I just want to thank you. I also just want to end with this guy that I was talking to about please. I actually asked him about the mind-blowing thing. I was like, have you ever gotten your mind blown before? He was thoughtful. He was like, no, I don't think so. And I was just like, all right, be ready. Be open, please.
That's amazing. Jeannie, I love when you join us here. Always great chatting with you. I appreciate all your insights and stories. Yeah, have a great rest of your night. We'll talk to you soon. Bye.
And you see, it's so
She's
funny
awesome.
because, you know, just the simple decision to push past that thought of, well, my voice is not what I perceive to be perfect. And if not for that, we wouldn't have had the chance to have any of that conversation or any of that insight. And I know somebody listening to this right now, you, dear listener, took that in. Right. And that's why it's worth it. So stop judging things, whether or not it lives up to some weird expectation. Just jump in if you can. Right. If you can. And what I liked about that was that it's not like she was hurting herself to do so. right? It was just what she could do. And so I really appreciate Jeannie jumping in there. We have another person in the queue. I'm going to pass it over to Andrew, though, quickly, because we haven't taken a breath through all of this for a bit. And I was just wondering if you had any thoughts that were building up in the background.
Oh yeah, lots. And the last thing you said, I was like, oh, I have such a great point for that, and it's just not there anywhere. Oh, and of course, then it comes back, because I'm willing to admit that we never fucking know what impact we're having, ever, fucking ever, and we're so quick to judge what we're doing based on our own fucking limited, tiny little perspective of the situation, based on fuck all evidence, based on fuck all experience of a given thing. And yet we have this one tiny itty bitty little perspective and certainty that comes with it. We're like, oh yeah, that's definitely the case. That's definitely how that interaction went, and exactly how everyone thought of it, which was happened to be exactly how I'm thinking of myself right now. And it's just that unwillingness to let go of the certainty that stems off of the tiniest little smidge of evidence. Doesn't even fucking, you can't even put a finger on it. It's like, what evidence do you have? None. I just wanted some, so I made some up, and then I got attached to it. And just because I wasn't willing to recognize that maybe I don't know, maybe I don't know the impact of the thing that I just said. Maybe I don't know the impact of waking up 10 minutes later because I hit my snooze on my alarm an extra couple times in the morning. Like, you don't even know that. You don't know what was gained or lost in that back and forth, because there wasn't anything ever gained or lost. And so we try and come up with an idea of gaining or losing something, value, time, experience, whatever. And it's just that attachment to the certainty that you're ever losing anything that gets in the way. Like, there's never anything lost or gained. It's just how far you stem from being what is here now in the fullness of the experience and the attention that you're willing to pay. And through that uncertainty, fucking all there's left is relaxation. Like, you don't know. You don't fucking know. You don't ever know. But anyway,
Let go of the how and just do. And that's it. You know, you don't know. And that's great. This is one of the reasons that I always get this weird surprised look on my face as soon as somebody's like, oh, it's like you were saying that one day, right? And I'm just like, oh, was I? And it's just because to be able to talk in the way that I do, and to be able to get into the mindset that I'm in, I have to stop giving a fuck if anybody's listening. Like, it can't be for that reason. I can't think to myself midway through a sentence, what is somebody going to think about that? And that is the reason that it can get so tricky, because that is when sometimes you'll end up saying shit that might be inconsiderate or might be insensitive. And the reason is because you haven't felt why that's inconsiderate or insensitive. So don't judge yourself like, oh, if I let myself off the chain, I'm going to fuck it up. No, you're going to express how little you actually do know, rather than holding on to what you think you know with white knuckles. That's all. You'll allow yourself to waver, to feel as unsteady as you actually are, because you need to take in what balance is. And then to do that, you have to trust yourself. Right. And so it's about just speaking for you. This is why conversations have changed tone for me, and they did years ago, because I recognized, like, I'm not convincing anyone of anything. I'm not telling anyone anything. We're just spending eternity together. That's all of us are doing, is just being what is in motion. So that's why a good conversation is like a dance. It's like a game of back and forth, and you can play that game with people and they know it's a game. The people who know it's a game, they're just like, oh yeah, how about this? It's like playing ping pong, right? And it's so much fun. Whereas other people, they feel like it's an obligation. I don't want to play. And they'll hit the ball back, but it's out of resent and shit, or they hit it back too hard or not at all. Like, we're just spending time together, but everybody's trying to get somewhere. And so none of us are enjoying the dance.
and it's just that, like, I don't know. I don't know what's happening. And oh man, I had another point, and I was like, oh, and then I was like, oh, relax. Oh, it's not that. Oh, and there it is. All right. It's how seriously we take it. Like, it's so interesting. Like, serious people, like, is anyone inherently serious, or is it just how seriously we take this for different reasons? Like, is anyone actually born serious, No, like how many serious kids do you know? It's really only the ones who oftentimes are going through fucked up shit at home. Like those are the ones who get hardened quickly. And it's from the seriousness that they must take, that the seriousness with which they must take a response to ego at play, certainty at play. They're interacting with certainty at play every single day. And so there's a hardening with that certainty. They have to grasp more and more quickly to certainty. And it's like, how progressive is that grasping onto certainty from birth? And the grasping onto the certainty creates the seriousness with which we take this experience. And so is it really like, is that an indicator right there? How serious are you taking this? How seriously are you taking this overarching experience? It's like we can pinpoint seriousness about certain things, but there's also like a willingness to not even do that too often, because it's like that, and even that is something, and maybe this is just an excuse ingrained in me, is that like there has to be things taken seriously. And it's like, or what if they're not and you still do them? Like there doesn't have to be an overlaid seriousness with which you take something that you're doing, kind of the work is play recognition. Like the action itself exists in and of itself, and it can either be taken lightly or taken heavily and seriously, but the action doesn't change. You can still do the same shit, like put out just as many things, talk as often as you want, and it's just the seriousness with which you take that action versus the lack thereof dictates your entire experience.
And the environment that you create for everyone else. So I'm glad we took that very brief moment just to kind of, debrief, as it were, because that was a lot of insight all at once. Thanks to everybody who called in so far. We have one more person in the queue, and this is going to be our last call for the day because we only have about 20 minutes left. This would be Maddie. Maddie has actually been part of the community since its beginning. I believe she was at the first retreat. She's often in the Patreon calls and on Discord. It's always nice to have her join the group. And today we are talking about nothing specific, just this experience in general, general.
Maddie, what is up? Appreciate the patience. We have some bottled up stuff that I had to get out.
That's all good.
How you doing?
I found it really funny how you were on the topic of like how seriously we take things, because my mind kind of, as I was listening to the live, trailed off into like thinking, how seriously do we take it? And like, when is it and then I was also thinking, when is it necessary, or when is it okay to kind of take things serious? I feel like both and neither, like it's really up to you, but maybe in terms of survival, that's probably when it's like the most necessary, so that, we can continue on like having this experience. Like we want to survive. And like our ego is going to do its best to help like make that happen, or to help protect us. But yeah, I can't remember, like I didn't have anything specific that I was going to talk about, but just how, I don't know, like this whole like illusion is just crazy. I think what's been ringing out to me during this live is, and maybe in like the last few Patreon calls that have been happening, is learning to just kind of more so sinking into where you are, including other versions of yourself. There's nowhere to get, like, where are you trying to get to? Like, you've already arrived. And then just how you guys were on the subject of like just being like human beings, or whatever we are. Like, I feel like human being, like there's so much label attached to that, so I don't even know like truly what a human is. I feel like we're kind of finding out as we're going along. Like we just keep evolving our behaviors, just everything about us, like our makeup keeps evolving. But yeah, just how everyone is where they're at, everyone is on their own path, even though there is no path, but like everything is perfect. Like there is no perfect person because you already are it. Like this is already perfect. Even the things that you dislike or you attach a label to, like, oh well, I don't like this, or this is that. Well, this doesn't suit my idea of what like I don't know, good looks like. Well, everyone has like a different idea of good, but what is cool is that we can all come together and share our ideas, and then we can like enhance each other's ideas. But yeah, it's just like, it just fascinates me every day, this whole thing, and how some people are just kind of blindly going about their day, just too busy worried about these things that really don't have much of an impact on their life, but they're making it have an impact just through their perception or their point of view. But I feel that this conversation is growing, and it's almost like it's a lot easier to sort of bring up in day-to-day conversation as well. Like before, I assumed that no one was interested in talking about this, no one's like as passionate as like talking about it as me, but I've really like just questioned, like as I've been questioning all of Maddie's preferences and everything that Maddie is still holding on to, or like anything that Maddie is still holding on to in terms of the belief. Like there's so many freaking layers. Like but it's not that I'm seeking for the layers, they're just kind of coming up. And as they come up, I deal with them then and there. And then I remind myself, okay, well, I don't know that. Like everything is just me guessing as best as I can, but none of those guesses are set in stone. And I don't even know if those guesses are true. Like sometimes I might be on the ball and be like, wow, like that was a pretty good guess. But like 98% of the other time, it's just all bullshit, trying to give myself some ease, or like this ease before going into a situation. So like I'm preventing myself from like the full experience, because like just of based on like past experiences, whether they've been like super jarring, or whether it felt like, oh my God, this is so much, like I don't know if I'll be able to handle this. But now I'm more like just kind of, I feel like I'm just kind of walking myself through now. Like I'm not kind of running away. It's like, come on, we got this. Like, let's go. I'm going to hold my own hand and we can go through this together. And yeah, it's just, like there was something else that I was going to go onto, but like I kind of trailed off with whatever else I was talking about. But yeah.
You're good. You're good. Yeah, I got some thoughts. Certainly, it's interesting how from each experience, like even with the shifts or the changes or the ideas of what anyone should be doing, or any clinging to any degree of certainty is almost what attaches us to ourself. Like my idea of myself is made out of my false certainty, or I think I was talking about this yesterday, like made out of my opinions. Like without false certainty about myself or a situation or a right or a wrong way of living, like there isn't a false certainty to be left to create an idea of myself. And so it's almost always being reinforced to different degrees by just our attachment to certainty. Because as you were saying, even with like my desire, like sometimes I can be right about something coming up, but it's like, was it really that? It's like, as you experienced it, maybe your idea of it seemed similar to the thing that came up, but it's like any degree of attachment creates a sense of control to what's happening, like control, and then inherently you're separate because you're controlling something that's separate from you. And so it just comes back to our willingness to be uncertain, but not even about a situation, just uncertain in the experience that we're having, like here and now. Always can you be uncertain about what you think is certain about yourself, about the world, about other people, about the ideas of other people, about any perceived division at all. Like, can you be willing to let go of the false certainty that stems from that, and then incorporate it by means of communication, but in only from that, and not so much from a standpoint of how it relates to you and how it builds and measures you.
Lately, I've been seeing how, damn it, I'm trying to catch it, but I've been kind of in the episodes that I've been listening to, Andrew, you've been talking about how do we ever actually do the thing for the thing, or how long have we been doing things for the outcome? Like, when did that transition start? I feel like it happened maybe in between those like teen years, when we like were going through high school and we realized, okay, like we latch onto the idea or onto the expectation, or like the societal expectation, or maybe it's even just like, it's really interesting because as we're growing up, we all get this idea that everyone assumes that we're supposed to be like this, that society assumes or wants us to be like this. But does anyone actually come up and tell us, you need to be this, this, and this? Maybe like little like sections throughout our life, like people will say, you need to get a good job so that you can like get enough money so that you can go off and like buy a house and start a family, blah, 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 that whole bullshit. But like, did anyone actually come up and tell us like, society expects you to be X, Y, and Z. And if you're not this, then you're like failing as a person. But we all just like, it's like together as we were growing up collectively, we all latched onto it and like we made assumptions. It's crazy. I've never thought about that until now. But yeah, just how like, did we even ever talk about it as we were growing up? We just were always talking about the things that like we kind of wanted to do or that we were interested in, but we didn't realize like this background noise that was kind of being created and then slowly coming up and then just like kind of hitting us like as soon as we finish high school, or like as we're leading up to uni or college. Different countries, you guys go to college, we like tend to go to uni, or if you're doing TAFE, then it's probably called college. But yeah, and just how there's like, I've noticed how there's even like the faintest noise when I've been catching everything, even like very slightly in the background, stuff will still be there and I can like see it, and then like the more I look at it, the louder it'll get, and then it'll come to surface. And I'm like, what the fuck? Like, it's just insane, like how many layers there are. And like, it's just, you're just forever going through them, but it's not like it's a chore. It's not like, oh my God, like I'm so tired of this. It just becomes fun. You're just like, fuck yeah, let's go. Like, I'm ready. But yeah, I can see that we've run out of time here and that you guys are probably going to wrap up soon. So
Oh, it's great that you could join us. We appreciate you being here. As always, it's interesting. It's not that so much that somebody came up to us and told us, you know, these are the rules, this is the way you got to live, blah, blah, blah. There is an implied message, though, and that implication is very much demonstrated by the priorities of our society. And what I mean is that you go to high school and you're like, oh, so I'm here to learn. And they're like, no, you're here so you can get a job. Why do I want to get a job? Because otherwise you could be that dude who's homeless. Right. And so all of a sudden, it's not that they've said you have to live this way, but there is this implication that if you don't, that there's going to be suffering as a result. And so it's almost this implied message by the collective, quote unquote, right? But by us, by me, there is this implied message that control is the best way to live. It's going to pay off eventually. We keep doing it. Yeah, we got a history of like bloodshed and war and economic failures and revolutions. So ignore all that. Control, it's going to work out, and that's it's just implied to us, right? And it takes a lot of maturity to recognize that promise is the promise of Honest Ed's used cars. It'll run, I promise. I'm Honest Ed.
Oh man, it's yeah, we'll get into that. Maddie, I can let you go. I know we'll be wrapping up in a couple minutes here, but always great chatting with you, and hope to see you on a Patreon calls very soon.
I'll see you guys soon.
All right.
Bye, guys.
Bye, Maddie. Yeah, that was a lot of fun. And fuck that, your last bit, like the oh man, that idea, that implied idea of just, and that's, I guess I'm starting to see more and more why you're enjoying building, not that I'm not enjoying this all thoroughly, but this dream, that you've had for a long time, because it's always that. And we see it on any scale of any part of society, are like, careful, don't go out on your own. What about health insurance? What if this happens? What if it doesn't work out? Just get this safe, secure job, and it'll guarantee that you're in control of your life. And we're seeing more and more, like, entrepreneurship is going bonkers the last, whenever 30, 40 years. It's like just gone crazy. And now with the internet, now it's like, you have 17-year-olds on TikTok making more money than, their parents who have worked for, their whole life. And so it's a shift in the expression of myself, in the expression of yourself, in the willingness to not to go outside of that idea, that sense of control, and be willing to take responsibility for your experience, not force the responsibility onto the employer, onto the company, onto the insurance provider, onto all of these things outside of yourself. We're even seeing it with Bitcoin, like with self-custody. Like, that's a lot of the resistance that I've gotten when I talk to people about it is, well, what happens if I lose my hard wallet? What happens if I lose my Trezor? It's like, then that shit's gone. We're so not used to that responsibility. Holy fuck. But you see, like, this is something that's come up in the last, 14 years, right? It's like that sort of responsibility. We want someone else to be responsible for us, right? It's like we're seeing all of these things that allow us to express ourselves individually, as opposed to coming, buying into this collective idea of control that's like has just grown and grown and grown and grown and grown until it stops. But the growth is just you here now. That's it. It's just you here now is the growth of the collective fucking mentality, ego, whatever. It's like a perception of a ripple out, but there's no time. So it's not something that plays out in time. It's something that plays out here now. And that's it. It's not, I'm going to get there tomorrow. there's not a tomorrow. I'm going to be better tomorrow.
So that changes everything. It changes the entirety of the experience that you're having, because then it's not about getting anywhere or becoming anything so much as how much you are aligned with what you already are. And that's where that influence is. That's where you can feel the rudder enough to actually have some sway over it. But most of the time, we're just running around the deck going, why don't I have any control over my life? And we're nowhere near the rudder because we're not in the present. We're not actually where we are. We're not accepting what we are. We're trying to be something. And so, yeah, it changes life entirely. And now all of a sudden, it just becomes about you being yourself as much as you can, which you find is an act of surrender. It's not actually an act of effort. You're not being yourself as much as you can. You're letting yourself be. And that's the end of the journey. And yet the journey itself, that's the whole fucking thing. It's a beautiful thing. It's the only thing. It can only exist in duality. What a fucking incredible gift. This has been a fun episode. This has been a lot of fun for sure. This whole day has been amazing. And of course, we have more episodes of Being High with Dualistic Unity coming out soon. The first episode isn't out yet, but it will be out in the next 24 hours or so. So keep an eye out for the first episode of Being High with Dualistic Unity. I love our new intro for that series. I love the fact that we smoke giant fucking doobies before we start recording. It's going to be a great series, and we're going to talk to some fucking dope, don't mind the pun, interesting people about cultivation, research, influence in the space, regulation, the relationship with the hemp industry, carbon sequestration. Holy shit, there is so much that we can get into with this series, Being High. I'm just gonna end it there. Thank you everyone for joining us. I'll pass it to Andrew and I'll shut the fuck up.
Oh man, that series is going to be fucking awesome. And we already have a number of really cool guests lined up. It's going to be a blast. And just, yeah, it just makes sense, man. All the things going on, it just makes sense. And they've always made sense, but sometimes you notice how much they make sense more than others. You're like, yeah, this makes a lot of sense. So this has been a very, very fun chat. And yeah, I look forward to chatting with some of you on Patreon very shortly.
Hell yeah, do join us. It's an 1.5-hour call. It's tier 2 call. And with tier 2, you get some merch, you get some other bonuses and shit, as well as a $150 discount on any retreat that you come to. There is a 7-day free trial available though. So do join us. Patreon.com/dualistic unity. Take care, everyone.